I'll take the rich husband and the mansion. As a thank you, I'll introduce you to my ex. Katie leaned in close to me and whispered in my ear. Mansions and wealthy husbands don't suit you, Lindsay, who's just boring and dull. Just leave already. I had been holding my breath unconsciously and my chest felt tight. I gasped for air with my shoulders. Leave? Disrupted breathing made it hard for me to speak clearly. At this, Katie burst into laughter. Oh, don't cry, Lindsay.
Sorry, Lindsay, but I've decided to live with Katie.
As I nearly hyperventilated, Matt mercilessly handed me the filled-out divorce papers. I was betrayed by both my husband and my sister. Receiving them only increased my anguish, and I doubled over in pain. I could acutely feel the stares of Katie and Matt. I couldn't hold back any longer. I raised my face, which had been bowed down, and let out a burst of laughter. There's no way I was crying. The ones who would be screaming and crying were Katie and Matt. I am Lindsay Anderson, a housewife in her 40s. Recently, I got married for the second time. My husband's name is Matt. He is a man 2 years older than me. He used to be a tenant in the apartment I owned. While cleaning the apartments, he would often say,
Thank you for your hard work.
Gradually, we started chatting and eventually began dating.
I honestly thought you were just a part-time cleaning lady.
I'm in my 40s after all. Since I had my hair pulled back and wasn't fashionable, it's understandable he thought that.
I was really surprised when I found out you were the landlord.
While working, Matt focused mostly on his hobby, investing, and before he knew it, he had missed his chance to marry. I also had a penchant for investing, which brought us together naturally. We naturally progressed to marriage. Matt praises everything about my investment talks, saying,
That's amazing.
Not only that, but he's overjoyed when I serve him a simple meal, saying,
Delicious.
And if I massage his shoulders, he melts into a blissful expression. He's older but somewhat immature and pure-hearted. At my age, I didn't want to wear a wedding dress for the second time, and although it was unfair to Matt, who was getting married for the first time, we didn't have a wedding ceremony. Instead, we moved into a high-rise apartment as Matt wanted.
Wow, what a view.
Even though it's just the 5th floor of the high-rise apartment, Matt gleams as he looks out over the city.
It's just the two of us, but the room is big and it's really luxurious. How many times bigger is it than the apartment I lived in?
He was giddy, and at that moment I couldn't have imagined that his straightforward nature could do a complete turnaround. The trigger was when Matt invited his colleague to our home.
Wow, this is amazing.
His colleague, Sean, stood frozen in the middle of the room, his mouth agape.
Is this your place? It's like a hotel. I've never stayed in such an amazing hotel. Quite surprising, am I right? It's really something, huh?
Encouraged by a proud Matt, Sean sat on the leather sofa.
Oh, I was told to bring this by my wife.
When Sean handed Matt a cake, Matt gave a perplexed smile and said,
Oh? Oh, thank you. This is the kind you often find at the supermarket service counter for about $10, right?
There's no need for him to say it like that. Sean shrank uncomfortably. Thank you for the cake. I really love it. Trying to change the awkward atmosphere, I cheerfully offered Sean a cup of coffee.
Oh, thank you.
Sean seemed relieved as he sipped the coffee.
You know, Matt never used to join us for drinks, and he'd always have cup noodles or discounted ready-made meals for lunch. He never even bought juice from a vending machine. He really didn't spend money, did he? So I couldn't believe it when he suddenly moved into a high-rise apartment after getting married. Man, you're amazing. Well done. I know, right?
Matt raised his chin and puffed out his chest.
Who were those guys who said I couldn't get married, huh? There's nobody at the office who can make fun of me anymore. Sorry about that. Your wife is really lucky.
Matt and Sean joked around. I was a bit bothered by Matt's attitude, but maybe that's just how men talk. Sean's voice lowered as he said,
But this house is luxurious, unlike your wife who's plain and boring. Well, that's your loss. I'm not superficial like you. It's normal for a guy in his 40s to marry a woman in her 40s, right? Getting a cute wife in her 20s is something out of a comic book.
I couldn't believe my ears. They both seemed to be laughing, brushing it off as if nothing bad had happened.
Yeah, this high-rise apartment even has a gym and a classy bar. Not some cheap pub like you guys go to. I'll treat you to a drink.
With that, Matt and Sean went off to the bar in the apartment. In front of his colleague, Matt had grown a bit too bold. But from this day, Matt started to act arrogantly.
You went to that cheap supermarket again, didn't you? We are celebrities. It's embarrassing, so stop it.
Checking my purchases and receipts, Matt frowned unhappily. What I disliked most was Matt's evening drink. He always sat by the window, drinking while looking down.
The cars look like toys. People are so tiny too. They work down there without knowing they're being looked down upon.
Matt had completely changed. It felt like a distant memory when we bought discounted vegetables at a cheap supermarket and cooked together. I had been feeling uneasy about Matt. One day when I returned home, I saw unfamiliar pumps at the entrance. I swallowed nervously. Could it be that Matt had brought a woman home? Listening carefully, I could hear the laughter of a man and a woman coming from the living room. My palms were sweaty, even though it wasn't hot. I moved silently like a thief, sneaking down the hallway. Peeking into the living room, a woman with curly hair noticed me and raised her hand.
Ah, Lindsay, welcome home.
Huh? Katie? My tension instantly eased. It was my sister Katie, who was drinking with Matt. Relief was short-lived as questions started to arise. I had informed my mom about my marriage, but I hadn't told her our new address. Katie must have heard about the marriage from our mom, but I never expected her to show up at our house.
If you're married, you should have told me. I'm Lindsay's big sister. Let me at least celebrate your marriage.
Katie, already drunk, leaned on Matt's shoulder. Apparently, during the marriage greetings, Matt had ended up telling our mom about our new place. I really wished he didn't do that. I had previously told Matt that my relationship with my family wasn't good, but when my mom asked him where we live, it's natural to answer honestly. However, my mom's question about where we live wasn't just small talk. She probably just wanted something to look down on me about. She must have laughed behind my back, thinking the story about our high-rise apartment was a big lie.
Wow, I was surprised. I can't believe you actually live in a high-rise apartment. It feels so substantial. It's an apartment, but it's spacious, just like a grand mansion. It's totally different from our old family home.
Well, yeah. This is what you call high-rise apartment quality.
Nice, nice. Lindsay, you're amazing. I'm so jealous.
As she spoke, Katie continuously touched Matt's arms and thighs with blatant body contact. Matt's smile grew wider with each touch.
Lindsay, you've really moved up from being the wife of a husband who used to work in a fast food chain restaurant.
Matt suddenly tilted his head.
Huh? Didn't you know, Matt? Lindsay's ex-husband was a part-timer at a fast food chain. Lindsay used to go there a lot. Their meeting wasn't like they were high schoolers, you know.
A fast food chain? It's like a high school job. I can't believe she married someone like that. Her ex-husband was like a leech, huh?
Really? Both Mom and I were so worried we opposed their marriage, but she was like, I love him, I'm going to marry him, playing the tragic heroine. She just went ahead and registered the marriage without telling anyone.
They laughed heartily while drinking their beer. Talking about my ex-husband Tyler as if he were a joke made my head throb with pain. I wanted to stop the conversation right away, but my body wouldn't respond.
And then 5 or 6 years into their marriage, that husband suddenly died. Went straight to heaven. Poor Lindsay. She got what she deserved for not listening to our advice and marrying some weird guy.
At that moment, I swung my right hand up high. I came to my senses as Katie screamed. My hand was trembling above her head.
You're scary. Were you trying to hit me just now?
Katie's eyes widened as she blinked slowly. Then, as if switching gears, she weakened and slumped into Matt's shoulder.
I was so scared.
A chill ran down my spine at Katie's cloying voice.
Lindsay, what were you trying to do to your own family?
Matt yelled at me and I clenched my trembling palm. Sorry, but my sister...
Shut up. Are you making excuses after making your own sister cry? I thought you were a kind woman. I was mistaken.
Katie, sobbing, showed her white teeth. Her excessively red, vulgar lips were definitely smiling. Matt gently stroked her stiffly curled hair. Unaware that she was laughing, he lovingly embraced her. But to be slandered about the deceased Tyler...
What? You still have feelings for your ex-husband?
Matt wouldn't listen to me. At that moment, a complete rift formed between us. It's always like this. My family looks down on me and makes me a laughingstock. That's why I wanted to keep my distance. Ever since we were children, Katie, who was more physically attractive, was the darling of both our mother and our deceased father. On the other hand, I was often told by my mother,
"Don't worry, you can get plastic surgery when you grow up."
While Katie enjoyed a fashionable and romantic student life, I focused on my studies. I did it because my mother would praise me for scoring A on tests. But after a while, scoring A became expected, and I would be scolded for missing just one time.
"Lindsay, you're so good at studying. I'm proud of my smart little sister. I even bragged to my friends that you're studying hard for your future plastic surgery costs."
Although not good at studies but glamorous, Katie often ridiculed me. Even now that I am an adult, must I still be laughed at by my family? To have the deceased Tyler spoken ill of and not even be allowed to argue back. Worse, that Matt joined in laughing and blaming me was unbearably frustrating. A week has passed since then and our marriage remains strained. Matt used to enjoy living in the high-rise apartment, but recently he has been coming home late. He probably doesn't want to see me. Matt avoids our bedroom and warily secludes himself in a spare room. In this large house, we hardly sense each other's presence. It feels like the distance between our hearts is widening. This can't continue. Resolved, I decided to speak up the next day when Matt returned from work. "Matt, it's cold today. Would you like to have some hot pot together?" Matt, who was about to head straight to his room, glanced at the dining table. From the clay pot, warm steam rose, and the gentle aroma of broth spread. His response was cold.
Hot pot? I don't want to eat something so common. If you want to cheer me up, serve something like caviar or foie gras.
Though he had never even eaten those before, Matt shrugged in disbelief. Then he looked me up and down and sighed heavily again.
Not you. I was mistaken.
With those words, Matt disappeared into his room. Mistaken. I would soon come to understand the meaning of that word.
"Welcome home."
One day when I returned home, Katie greeted me at the entrance. She was unusually cheerful, smiling brightly. Behind her, Matt scratched his head, smirking. Katie and Matt seemed happy yet embarrassed, as if they had something to say, but hesitated to start. "What's wrong? Were you drinking and talking bad about me and Tyler again?"
"Oh, you and your paranoia."
As I started to take off my shoes, Katie stopped me.
Wait. Sorry, but can you not enter this house anymore?"
"What?"
So, right, Matt?"
Yeah. Well, Katie, you tell her.
Like a bashful new couple, Katie and Matt were awkward.
"So, we fallen in love."
"What?" In front of a flustered Katie kicking her legs, I responded flatly. Katie is not a high school student. She's a woman in her 40s with laugh lines. Somehow I felt embarrassed.
Lindsay, you still love your ex-husband, right? I got hurt, so it's only natural for me to change my heart to Katie, isn't it?
Huh? I nodded, but I couldn't understand.
"Lindsay, really, I'm so sorry."
Her apology lacked any genuine emotion. Katie clasped her hands in front of her chest, puckered her lips, and tilted her head. She leaned in close to my ear and whispered,
"I'll take the rich husband in the mansion. As a thank you, I'll introduce you to my ex."
The overpowering scent of toilet freshener gave me a headache. Her bright red lips barely touched my ear, causing goosebumps.
"It's okay. Relax. That ex of mine is also a part-timer. You like useless men, right? Mansions and wealthy husbands don't suit plain Lindsay. Just leave already."
With a fishy breath, Katie finally moved away from me. I was completely frozen. Katie crossed her arms, puffing out her chest with satisfaction. "Leave, you say?" I had been holding my breath unconsciously, and my chest felt tight. I gasped for air with my shoulders. "Leave?" My breathing was erratic, and I couldn't speak properly. At this, Katie burst into laughter.
"Oh, don't cry, Lindsay. Poor Lindsay."
Sorry, Lindsay, but I've decided to live with Katie.
As I nearly hyperventilated, Matt mercilessly handed me the filled-out divorce papers. Receiving them only increased my anguish, and I doubled over in pain. I could acutely feel the stares of Katie and Matt. I couldn't hold back any longer. I raised my face, which had been bowed down, and let out a burst of laughter. What have you been saying? Why do I have to leave? Suddenly bursting into laughter, I must have looked abnormal. Katie distorted her face and stepped back. Because the house is all in my name, I said while wiping tears from the corner of my eye. Katie frowned in confusion, and Matt gave a slight smile.
Huh? Do you understand what being handed divorce papers means? Matt and Lindsay are getting a divorce. Matt and I will live here, so the unwanted should disappear.
It seemed they took my words as the rantings of a deranged person. The house was already filled with Katie's scent. Behind her, I saw crumpled tights discarded on the living room floor. I realized there was no longer a place for me here. I felt ashamed to cling to a house that was steeped in Katie's scent.
Should we move to another house?
No, I really like this high-rise apartment.
Matt smiled confidently as he tempted Katie. He seemed to be plotting something, but it was none of my concern. Fine, I'll leave, so do as you like. A smirking Katie boldly declared.
I'm glad you're reasonable. Then Matt and I will live in this high-rise apartment. Don't complain later.
Sure, be happy. Then I packed my things into a single duffel bag and left the room where I was supposed to have a happy married life with Matt. A few days later, as I was returning from the store, I ran into Katie and Matt at the entrance of the apartment.
Are you still lurking around in the apartment? That's creepy. Just leave already.
Oh, don't tell me you have nowhere to go and you're sleeping here at the entrance. Wow, that's sad.
Having a homeless person at the entrance of a luxury high-rise apartment is too much. Spare us.
They pitied me based on their wild imaginations. I ignored them and headed for the elevator.
What? Do you want to pick up some belongings? No way. The air will get dirty if plain, poor-looking Lindsay enters the room. I'll send your stuff by collect delivery, so don't enter my house. Where should I send it? Maybe to a park? Or perhaps a station?
Katie and Matt followed me like fish droppings as I walked quickly. Just as I was about to press the elevator button, Matt hastily stopped me.
Hey, Lindsay. That's the elevator for the upper floors, isn't it? Are you out of your mind?
Maybe she's gone senile from the shock of being dumped by Matt.
Right. Good thing we left the senile old person. I don't want to deal with caregiving.
I pressed the elevator button regardless.
Hey, don't mess around, homeless. It's disrespectful to the high-class residents of the upper floors.
As I got into the elevator, Katie and Matt widened their eyes in surprise and slipped in just before the doors closed. Matt was thrilled, as it was his first time in the elevator for the upper floors, like riding an amusement park attraction. Then the elevator stopped at the top floor.
Oh no. This is not a place for our homeless to come. Stop it.
The real celebrities will get angry. I don't know you.
While holding me back, Katie and Matt curiously looked around. I continued to ignore them and opened the door to the room in front of me.
Ugh.
You're entering someone else's place.
I glanced at them and entered the room. Matt, flustered, grabbed the door just before it closed. He slowly pulled it and stepped into the room at the top of the high-rise apartment.
Hey, Lindsay.
Huh? Should we go in too?
After hesitating at the entrance for a while, the two tiptoed down the hallway.
Wow.
Arriving in the living room, Matt couldn't help but exclaim. The room, with walls of glass, offered a panoramic view of the city. It was nothing like the 5th floor.
Oh, why?
Sitting comfortably on the sofa, I finally met Katie and Matt's eyes. Why? Because this is my home. Katie and Matt's jaws dropped, almost dislocating. I moved here to the top floor because you suddenly kicked me out of my house. All right, you're going to send my remaining belongings by collect delivery, right? Please send them to this room. Though they seemed about to scream, they only managed to open and close their mouths.
What? Why?
Because it's my house. How many more times must I say that this is my house? I told you, everything is in my name. Both the room you're living in and this room, they're mine.
Huh? What? Why? I didn't know you owned the top floor too. Wasn't that fifth floor room supposed to be the best one you had? Did you trick me?
Matt had lived in an apartment I owned until we got married. He had asked if I had a better property, wanting to live in the highest grade room available. I didn't trick you. Just recently, the person who lived here on the top floor moved out.
Huh, no way. The top floor? I'm on the fifth and Lindsay's on the top? No way, that's ridiculous. Lindsay of all people.
Matt contorted his face and scratched his head.
Katie, are we really okay with living on the fifth floor? Under Lindsay? Let's move to a higher building.
Yes, let's move. Matt, we should live in a building that doesn't just see the nice tower, but looks down on it.
The two held hands, their eyes shining with visions of a splendid future.
Yeah. So, Katie, do you own a building higher than this one?
Huh? No, of course not.
I see, that's too bad. Then we'll just buy or rent as usual. Katie, I'm counting on you.
Huh? What?
Huh?
Where did their earlier sparkle go? The two of them seemed frozen in confusion.
Hey, I didn't really understand until now, but what do you mean by house is owned by Lindsay? Is this really Lindsay's house?
Kitty asked with a forced smile. Yes, well...
Ha! Lindsay being so cheeky. You studied hard to get plastic surgery, but in the end, you bought a high-rise apartment without spending the money on surgery?
No, that's not it.
Ah, I get it. It's a loan. You got a loan, right? You can buy anything expensive with a loan, so that's the trick. Don't scare me like that.
Katie convinced herself and nodded with her arms crossed.
But you can't beat Matt, right? Matt owns several apartments on the second and third floors of this high-rise apartment, and he has lots of other properties and land. You're not in the same league as Lindsay.
Matt awkwardly closed his mouth and looked away. But that's mine too, because I own this entire high-rise apartment.
What? But Matt said it was his.
Katie's pleading eyes turned to Matt. She had expected a confident Matt, but the real Matt had a pale, strained face.
Matt? Lindsay's lying, right?
No, well, it's ours, kind of.
Matt mumbled his words, and I clarified for him. It seems Matt has been bragging to Katie about properties and land that are in my name as if they were his. But what a pitiful man.
No, that's a lie.
The one who lied is Matt. Katie collapsed to the floor in shock.
Lindsay, of all people, this can't be true.
Matt, uncomfortable, gave a strange smile and apologized.
Sorry.
It was a straightforward apology, but it hardly registered with the dazed Katie. Unable to stand the heavy atmosphere, Matt started to laugh nervously.
Sorry. I don't own anything, but my feelings for Katie are real. I'll always support Katie by her side.
Matt.
Katie's cheeks turned slightly red. Money or love? No way that's possible.
So, Katie, how much do you own?
What? Oh, what?
Like, land or apartments?
What? Of course I don't own anything.
What? Why?
Katie and Matt raised and lowered their eyebrows, displaying pitifully confused expressions.
Katie, you were loved more by your parents than Lindsay, so it's natural for you to be favored, right? What happened to the apartment you inherited from your father?
Inheritance? What are you talking about?
Maybe you messed up and lost all the apartments you got?
What are you talking about?
Katie yelled, and finally the two fell silent. They stared at each other, making funny faces, opening their eyes wide, forming their mouths into frowns, and baring their teeth. I guess I lost this staring contest. Matt, you seem to have misunderstood. It's true, I own many apartments and lands because I inherited them. You can't buy 1 or 2 high-rise apartments just because you studied hard. But not from my father. Katie and Matt swallowed hard. I inherited from Tyler. Katie looked puzzled for a moment, but soon started giggling.
Tyler? Your ex-husband who was a part-timer at the fast food chain?
That's right, but he wasn't a part-timer. I explained this to my family when I decided to marry Tyler. It's true we met at a hamburger shop, but Tyler was not a part-timer there. He owned the land where the shop was located. How such a twisted interpretation led to the part-timer conclusion was beyond me. No matter how much I corrected it, I was laughed at. Yeah, working part-time at your age. Tyler came from a long line of landowners. He was very wealthy. I put it simply so Katie's eyes nearly popped out. He was rich enough to live without working his whole life. In reality, Tyler worked seriously, and I didn't quit my job after marrying him. We could have lived off his wealth, but we chose not to, so the fortune was well preserved. Furthermore, I learned investing and nearly doubled the fortune I inherited from Tyler. Matt's lips trembled.
You said you inherited, sure, but why from your ex-husband? I thought it was from your father. Normally you inherit from your parents, right? So I thought since Katie was more loved, she'd have a bigger fortune. If they're both rich, naturally, anyone would choose Katie over plain Lindsay. You tricked me.
Matt barked weakly. Of course I had told Matt about inheriting from my deceased husband. Why do people with strong misconceptions always assume so much?
I didn't know that. I wasn't told.
I was not bragging about being rich, but I repeatedly insisted that Tyler was not a part-timer. Katie's ears and brain just shut down.
Lindsay? Being rich? Lindsay owning a high-rise apartment? Unforgivable.
With people like this, you have to speak plainly without sugarcoating it. Sorry that someone like me owns $190 million in real estate. Sorry for living comfortably above your head, Katie, who is inferior to me. For some reason, Katie covered her head with both hands and slumped to the floor. She didn't speak, but tears of frustration overflowed. I walked to the window and looked outside. Matt, do you want to see the view too? It's quite different from the 5th floor. You might never see it again in your life, so why not take a look? Matt staggered over to me, and then unbelievably he put his arm around my shoulders.
Sorry, it was my fault. I just shifted my affection because it seemed like Katie had a lot of money. Think about it. Do you think I could really love a gaudy old woman like Katie? Ugh, gross.
Matt shifted his gaze to the vast view outside the large window, captivated by the endless panorama.
People look like toys. No, they're just trash.
I gently placed my hand over Matt's on my shoulder. Then Matt squeezed my hand and smiled kindly.
Lindsay, I love you.
Matt, I don't love you. I roughly shook off the hand Matt was holding. A man who cheats on his newlywed wife is just trash. By the way, the divorce papers you unilaterally handed me that day have already been submitted. So have you enjoyed the view from the top floor? Trash should return to the bottom where it belongs. Saying this, Matt, with his most handsome frozen expression, stiffened. Afterwards, Katie and Matt continued to live on the 5th floor of the high-rise apartment. Since Matt had mocked Katie so much, they certainly weren't living happily together. It was just that neither of them would back down from claiming, I'm staying here. One day, I saw them clearly lying in wait at the entrance of the apartment. As soon as they saw me, they stumbled over to me.
Lindsay, finally I found you.
Hey, what's this all about?
I knew what they were asking, even without looking at the paper they were showing me. What about it? It's a rent bill. You can understand if you read it. It's in English.
So why? Are you trying to take money from us?
Of course. Why do you think you can live here for free? As I answered calmly, Katie sidled up to me.
You're so cold. We're family, right? You can kick out this trash man, but I, as family, have the right to live here for free.
No, you don't. Have you forgotten what you've done? After stealing someone else's husband and ruining their family, and you talk about family? I have no family. Katie weakly muttered.
Lindsay, I was just jealous of Happy Lindsay. Honestly, I'm really in trouble.
Katie burst into tears. Interrupting her sobs, she talked about how difficult her situation was.
My ex-boyfriend was actually quite generous with money, even though he was a part-timer. I asked him and he was skillfully using a credit card. Did you know? If you use revolving credit, even if you spend $1,000 last month, you only have to pay $100 the next month. It's a great deal, right? But...
Katie sniffed miserably.
Before I knew it, I was made to shop for my ex-boyfriend up to his credit limit, and after maxing out, I was dumped. Don't you think I'm pitiable? I don't have any money, so let me stay in the high-rise apartment.
That was the ex-boyfriend she tried to introduce to me. I see, you were dumped. But it's okay. You have Matt, right? Probably he and your ex-boyfriend are similar. Both are equally worthless. Matt claimed to have a hobby in investing, but he never shared the details with me, always prying into my affairs. But he couldn't really say. He's been gambling away most of his salary on casinos. Just because you have money doesn't mean you have to be flashy. Tyler and I were very modest and didn't waste money. I thought Matt was the same before our marriage. I misjudged him as being modest and kind without talking much about himself. When our relationship was faltering, I almost fainted when I found a casino ID. Be happy with Matt, whom you took from me. Oh, by the way, the deadline for the rent payment is tomorrow. Don't forget to pay.
That's impossible.
If it's impossible, please leave. Despite my straightforward approach, Katie cried out loud,
But we're family!
And Matt clung to my leg, screaming,
I love you, Lindsay.
This high-rise isn't a luxury apartment, it's more like a daycare. Disciplining these toddlers is not my job. Eventually, Katie and Matt couldn't continue living in the high-rise apartment and had to leave. I also moved out, so I no longer have to worry about being ambushed by them. The top floor of the high-rise apartment was lovely, but it just didn't feel like me. Another great view today. I leaned out from the balcony on the second floor. Before me stretched an endless sea. Living in the city felt like being swallowed by a sea of dark buildings. Away from the city, I changed my residence and job, starting anew. Neighbors share vegetables and seafood with me. Life doesn't always require parents, siblings, or a spouse. Just spend time with people you like. Even without family, I'm perfectly happy alone. Speaking of which, Tyler loved the sea too. I live freely on my own, but in my heart there's always a smiling Tyler. I realized that I'm alone, but I'm not lonely.